Hey there, is another segment of In the News. And today, with all that's going on with Black Lives Matter and COVID, really one of the only things that's been sticking out to me or that I've seen most recently in the news and found it to be interesting was, once again, Donald's inappropriate use or use without permission of another artist's song. This time it was T.I. He's done this several times before with the use of over 18 other very popular artist songs that he did not get permission from them to use their song, whether it be in a political advertisement or at political rallies or things of that nature. And the artists end up sending cease and desist letters for the use of their song inappropriately. So of course I like to use these as teaching moments and really discussing exactly what kind of permissions should he have gotten that really they just decided not to get. Okay, so let's first talk about just the use of all of these artists' voice, and I say how their performance, right? So really we're talking about the masters. Did the president's campaign get permission to use the master recordings of these particular artists for them to then, of course, have permission to use the song? Well, apparently not. Well, who do you get permission from in order to use a master recording? Typically, it's the label or it's the artist directly if the artist, of course, owns their masters. Without that permission from the label or the artist, and depending on, how they're going to use it. So for instance, if it's going to be used in the ad, it's called a master use license for, them syncing it up with that advertisement. Or even really in a public performance kind of situation, a public venue, once again, outside of needing the permission from the songwriters, you need permission from the artist for the use of their particular masters. And we can kind of there's some murky waters when it comes to that, but we'll get to that later. So essentially, just for the use of their voice, right? For the use of their voice, you need a master use license, especially if you're talking about it on to pair with a political campaign ad. So without that permission, first of all, you're out the box. Now, when you start talking about the songwriting portion, getting permission from the songwriters, you also need permission from them. A lot of times, especially now, a lot of our artists are also songwriters. So in that same breath, you need a synchronization license if they're going to play this ad on television paired with movement, right? You need a synchronization license. That license comes from a publisher, from that particular songwriter / artist publishing company. Without that permission, once again, you're out the box. He cannot use the song. Apparently, he did not get the master rights. He did not get the synchronization license. So, of course, he has no permission to use the song in a political campaign ad. Essentially, without let's say it's a political campaign ad, right? If he had gotten the permission from the songwriters on the publishing side and decided, well, I'm not going to use the master recording, and let's just say, for instance, T.I. was not the writers of that particular song, and he had gotten permission, he may have been able to use it, but clearly he got no permission, so let's not even go down that road. Essentially, like I said, you need a master use license, and you need the synchronization license, which apparently he did not get for the use of the song in a political campaign ad, right? On the opposite side, let's say, you're using this particular song at a campaign rally. Well, this is called a public performance, right? Well, in the public performance space, you need permission from the publishing company or the parties that's licensing the public performance of that song. Typically, you all sign up for ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, like every other big artist that we know / songwriter that we know. Getting a license directly from them is how you get permission to use that song in a public performance space. Without that license, without that permission, he cannot use that song walking off on stage or walking on stage to, hype up his supporters or what have you, right? Well, if he is, let's say, at a stadium, like your big major football stadiums or something like that, they typically have blanket licenses because of so much the music that they play in the stadium for the games and other things that come in and out of the stadium, right? Well, apparently they've been trying to hide under these, or use them, I don't want to say hide, but use them to their benefit and say, well, hey, the venue we use has a public performance license through, let's say, ASCAP. And so because of that, we're using an ASCAP signed artist, so we should be able to use the music, i.e. that's how they say they got permission. Versus if they're out in the middle of a parking lot doing a campaign rally. Well, in the middle of a parking lot, they're not hiding under a venue, which means they have to directly get permission from the publishing company and get a license, which is that public performance license directly from the publisher. Without that permission, once again, they're in violation and they're using the song without permission, i.e. why artists / songwriters sending these cease and desist letters saying, hey, you didn't get permission, and basically I'm not going to give you permission, so stop using my music for your campaign. So that's how that works, guys. As always, if you have a in the news article you'd like for me to discuss, feel free to send it to me in my DMs.